Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Toronto. I am the Executive Director of Student Services for the Redondo Beach Unified School District. On behalf of the Board of Education, our Superintendent, Dr. Keller, I would like to welcome you to the Reopening Schools Town Hall. Prior to today, staff and families had the opportunity to submit questions that will be answered by one of our panelists. Before we begin the Q&A, I would like to introduce our Board President, Mr. Brad Serkin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for taking the time today to join us at the RBUSD Reopening Town Hall. We appreciate you being here and appreciate all of your submitted questions to us. It is hoped that we can address as much as possible today for you. I apologize you're just hearing me via audio as I'm presently driving, and in the interest of safety and not having my background as a distraction. To begin with, please know that we always have your children's best interests in mind and want nothing more than to have your children return to school safely in the classroom. This has been our plan and focus up until 2 weeks ago, when the cases increased significantly and the governor mandated schools to remain closed for the time being. Now, we know that the prospect of returning to distance learning is challenging, distressing, and there's a great apprehension based on your past experience with distance learning. At the time the schools were shut down, the original timeline was a few weeks out, which obviously was extended through the end of the school year. Our dedicated teachers in an instant had to move from in-person learning to teaching via an online platform. We both succeeded in many cases and definitely failed in others. Utilizing both guidance from the state and from our county, and with a loss of local control for many pieces, led to many compromises this past spring, which led to a diminished learning experience. We want to assure you that the entire RBUS team has spent the past few months reviewing everything from the spring, implementing changes that need to occur, development of multiple comprehensive plans, both for our parents that intends for your children to return as soon as it is deemed safe, as well as those who opt for this coming year at home. The expectations from our students and staff will return to the level that you and we have always expected from our RBUSD community. Nothing can ever replace the in-person experiences that our children receive from being on campus and in-person learning, but we believe that we can get to it as close as possible. Nothing is more important than your children, and we intend to ensure that they receive the education they deserve. We know that the situation is not ideal for most, and we look forward to the day soon that life will return to normal. There are many opinions in both the medical and local community on how to best to reopen schools. We are listening to all. In some cases, our choices are made for us by either the county or state, so our hands are tied. There are options for waivers, but the barrier for entry is high for that as well. However, we believe we have planned for all situations and are ready to ebb and flow as needed. We believe that we can meet the requirements of the county to keep our children and staff as safe as possible once we return to the classroom. We thank you all for your feedback and patience and look forward to welcoming back our children in whatever capacity you choose, and we are allowed to in a few weeks. Be well and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. Now I'd like to introduce the Vice President of the Board of Education, Ms. Kramer Flynn.
Thanks, Dr. Toronto. I just want to add, Brad covered most of it, but I want to thank everybody for their patience and remind us that we're all out of our comfort zone in this pandemic. I want to assure you that our school district is still here for you and your children, and we've heard your concerns and continue to do the best that we can for your kids. I've had the benefit of being in the weeds, if you will, on this think tank for the past few months. And I have watched these educational experts that we have here on this panel today work tirelessly among parents and other community members to ensure their kids get the best education they can, whether we're in a traditional classroom setting or not. Based on some of the feedbacks I've received recently, I just want to remind everyone here that there is not a scenario being offered, whether it's the hybrid or 100% online learning, that isn't going to include daily live instruction from one of our amazing RBUSD teachers. As a mother of 2 girls, I don't have a doctor in front of my name. Mom is the most important title that I carry, and I would feel confident placing either of my children in both models. That was my guiding truth as I walked into this. I wanted to make sure we offered a choice that I would put my children in. And I believe that as parents, I'm proud that we get a chance to have a choice in a horrible situation. I'm proud that we've committed to get back into classrooms when safe and that we're offering an option for those who don't feel comfortable coming back to a classroom at this time. I'm very proud that our CDC and our teachers have started working and teaching in this community when many others haven't. They have been teaching and will continue to teach safely, just as we will as we start this school year. I know how easy it is to react as a parent, and I've had to be reminded that we all need to take a breath. We're in good hands, the same hands that had our kids before COVID. And I'm thankful to this group. I'm thankful to the parents. And I know that we'll all get our questions answered. This is a start today, and we'll be able to make the best decisions we can for our own families. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Now I'd like to introduce the proud superintendent of schools for RBUSD, Dr. Stephen Keller.
Back. It's been a long day. I want to thank our district office folks. First of all, the employees that show up to our work each and every day. We have been live. We've been here, many of us 12 hours a day. Some of us been here on the weekend. We've been showing up. And so that's the first thing I'd say. So proud of that team and proud of the principals and the site administrators for showing up and really trying to get the year started. Secondly, obviously, I want to thank our school board. Our school board, has never signed up for a pandemic, and it landed here. And so I certainly want to thank them for their leadership, for their management, for their resilience. They've been nothing short of spectacular and supportive and honest. I'd also like to thank the think tank, the reopening think tank. And just to be clear, it's a think tank of people that are happy to disagree. Our saying is hard on the problem, soft on the people. We're definitely hard on the problem. We've certainly disagreed, and we've certainly continued to be agile as we've asked our parent community. Want to thank, of course, Dr. Toronto for facilitating this. Want to thank our parents, excuse me, our staff members, and of course our students for just being resilient themselves and understanding. This is we're managing, and I use the word managing. I mean, we're trying to lead, but as this evolution of this process continues, it just feels like in some ways, some of us that enjoy leading, even in tough times, it appears we're just doing a lot more managing. And so work with us as we work with you in managing ourselves into a better tomorrow. And then lastly, obviously, I want to thank our PTA, Redondo Beach PTA, the best of all people in the whole wide world, and the Redondo Beach Ed Foundation, who continue to support us financially and provide value-added experiences for our kids.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Keller. And so I'd like to turn it over now to our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Service, as Mrs. Cho. She has some important information to share with you regarding a letter that was sent home earlier today.
Thank you, Dr. Toronto. So earlier today, an email was sent out notifying all of our families that we have listened to all of your questions submitted to this town hall meeting. And as we continue to plan, especially during this time, it's important to ensure that students continue to learn in a safe, supportive, and academically rigorous environment. So RBUSD believes that the quality of our instructional program comes from our school's dedicated team of teachers, counselors, support staff, and administrators, all working together as a team. The hybrid model was designed to get us back in person. So when we get permission to reopen and welcome our students and families back to school, we will be ready. Originally, we had asked our families to make their selection by the end of this, by next week. And with the input from our reopening think tank, we've decided to postpone this deadline until we can reopen safely. So families can engage in our hybrid learning model in distance learning and determine their comfort level with returning to school at a later date. Please note that we will not be able to have our schools operate in a 100% distance learning model when it is safe to reopen our schools. So families that do not feel comfortable returning to in-school learning will be transferred to the 100% online learning model with schools PLP. In the next day or so, the Ed Service team will be sharing additional information on schools PLP so that families can make an informed decision for this option. And any family that has serious concerns at this time, please reach out to your child's principal for further guidance and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cho. And so I just want to give everybody a brief update. I know that right now I'm getting a lot of emails from families who are trying to log into our WebEx event. So if you please bear with us just for a moment, we have additional families who are trying to join us, and we want to make sure that they're part of our town hall so they can hear the important information that we're about to share. So we can just pause for a second. I would ask Mr. Kinsey, if you can please just show slide number 2. I just want to remind people of a few things, especially the people who are in this room as panelists, because they are the people who will be answering questions. And so real quickly, you can see here from the slide that's in front of you, the town hall panelists include, as I mentioned, our board members, Dr. Keller, Dr. Alpern, Dr. Wesley, Ms. Chow, Dr. Wilds, Ms. Silverling, Ms. Van Dusen, Mr. Kinsey, Dr. Bruna, Ms. Veal, Mr. Brandt, Dr. Poe, and myself. I should mention that the panelists here, yes, we are all part of the RTT, but we're also parents in this district. And so I want you to know that when we're working together collaboratively and we're having those difficult conversations, it's not just about our own kids, it's about all of our kids. And we're trying to make sure that we provide opportunities that will provide continuity in education and learning, while also meeting the social and emotional needs of our students. And so with that said, Dr. Keller, I know earlier you had talked about and you thanked a lot of people. Do you mind just taking a minute and kind of giving us some input on the agencies that guide our decision making? So Mr. Kinsey, if you can go to slide 3, please.
All right. Hi, everybody, again. So these are the agencies that guide us, and I think this is really important for people to see. You have the LA County Office of Education, which is typically advisory, but they've had more of an assertive role in this pandemic, of course. And then also of late, since the governor's order on July 17th, you've seen definitely an increase in the California Department of Public Health's influence, if you will, in all things COVID in the state of California. The CDC, which is obviously the Centers for Disease Control, not our Child Development Center, in this case, obviously guides us, provides some great information and great handouts for our parent community and staff as well. And then really who's guiding us for the most part today, and I know the question's going to come to Dr. Kuo later, specific to this, but really who's been guiding us the most in this process in school closures, potential school openings, is the LA County Department of Public Health. And I just want to make that really clear. They really have made it clear to us, and we've been giving the clear direction that really when we get to the point of reopening, they will be the ones guiding us and directing us, if you will, in this process. And then the California Department of the Department of Education for the state of California, CDE, is obviously the umbrella for all things public education, K-12 or TK through adult ed. And so we follow them wherever they tell us to go in the way of instructional minutes, minimum amount of instructional minutes, as an example, ed code and things of that nature. And then, of course, our friends and advocates at the Beach Cities Health District, who are always there for us when needed and are going to work with us, as well as the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, in trying to tackle probably the biggest lift of all is eventually addressing the testing issue and any support there that they can provide. And so they also provide us support, Beach Cities Health District, and the whole social-emotional well-being movement that we have here and have had here for the last decade. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
Thank you, Dr. Keller. And I know, again, we're still waiting for people to join the meeting, but I do want to remind those who are with us right now that this meeting is being recorded and it will be made available by the earliest tomorrow morning on our website. So that way, if people did miss the intro, you have the opportunity to go back and rewatch. So with that said, I'd like to transition into our Q&A session. But before doing so, I wanted to provide you with some important data. We received over 500 individual submissions, with most people wanting to learn more about distance learning, in-class learning, curriculum and instruction, and grading and assessment. I want to let you know also that all the questions were read. They were edited to take out any individual specific information, combined or synthesized when necessary, so that we address the categories that receive the most amount of submissions. Okay. Please note that we received a large volume of questions. We are trying to address the most common questions that are still on the minds of staff and families. Based on those submissions, I just want to take a moment to introduce Dr. Susan Wilds. She's the Executive Director of Educational Service. She's going to clarify for us the 2 learning model terms that you're going to hear throughout the rest of our presentation today in the Q&A. So Dr. Wilds, can you go over the next slide for us here, which would be slide number 4?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to go into a great amount of detail today, and it's really important for us to kind of have these terms kind of clarified so we don't continue to confuse anyone. Each school district is using terms that are slightly different, so we wanted to make sure we set forward how we are defining them. So for the purposes of today, we're talking about option 1 as being what we're calling a hybrid distance learning. Hybrid means just that. It's a blend of in-person and distance learning. It can vary from in percentage, thinking about a sliding scale between 50% in person and 50% distance, all the way up to 0% in person and 100% distance, which is how we are going to have to start the year based on the governor's announcement. But we're still going to be operating within this sliding scale as we think about the school year. The second model that we're going to be talking about later today, and like Ms. Cho said, we will be sending out a more detailed video for parents to watch and some demonstration lessons for parents to engage in so they can understand the 100% online learning model. And that's a model that's going to be supported with a combination of our RBUS teachers and the use of the school's PLP digital curriculum. Thank you, Dr. Toronto.
Thank you, Dr. Wilds. And so at this point, I'm reminded of something that Ms. Flynn said earlier, to take a deep breath. We can all do that right now because we are going to start our Q&A session. And again, we're still trying to work out the issue of having more people enter the room, but this event is being recorded. And so we do encourage people that once it is made public on our website, they can reference back to that. And I do apologize for the delay in us letting you in the room. So here we go. Dr. Keller, the first question is for you. Is RBUSD planning on being able to scale back up to 5 days in the classroom if the Department of Public Health deems it is safe to do so during the 2021 school year, or are there only 2 options for the entire year?
Let me first start off by saying I took a phone call there because we have the first ever that's happened in our district. We have a maximum viewership of 1,000, and so we have people trying to get on right now that are unable. Mr. Kinsey just shared that with me. I'm impressed with the viewership. That's terrific. So what I wanted to do is just stop for a moment and let people know, if you have somebody texting you or emailing you, even if you're an employee of the district and on this call, I tell you never to do that. If they reach out to you, just let them know. It'll be available. You'll get back to them, Dr. Toronto, when the content will be available on our website tomorrow morning at some time. So I want to make sure people have that. Okay, so that's very important. This is the first for us. So thank you for being agile, and thank you, Mr. Kinsey and Dr. Toronto. All right, so let's get to the answer. 5 days a week. If you remember, one of the original survey questions was, parents, do you want to come back to a 5-day-a-week experience if you're offered that opportunity for your children or your child? And I think it was 57%, in fact, said sure. And I was one of those people. So at that time, that was a consideration. We had heard that if the data the COVID data continued to be at a level that was safe, that would be a consideration for us, if nothing else, at the elementary schools. And so at the time, we thought there was a chance in heck that could happen. And so we did kind of lob it out there to see what the interest would be, just to take the pulse, as we've been saying all along. At this time, we're not coming back 5 days a week. It's just not an option. Pre-COVID experience is just not something that's going to happen anytime soon that we anticipate. However, we follow the LA County Department of Public Health guidelines, and we will continue to do so. They will tell us when it's safest to come back. We obviously want to come back as soon as we can in our hybrid model to a blend of distance learning, which we're starting out with, and then a few days on campus each week, which will be great for our kids, great for our staff. It'll ease them back into the eventual rebirth of the 5-day experience, which is somewhere down the road. And so I would say for now, just under the governor's order, the LA County Department of Public Health's direction, our goal is to come back in a hybrid model where kids are gradually coming back on campus and excited to see their teachers, their friends, and other staff members.
Very good. Dr. Keller, I'm going to stay with you for the second question. Is RBUSD considering applying for the waiver allowing elementary schools to reopen?
So that question has been asked a few times, and it's a tricky question because Nobody knew that was coming, according to my sources. Nobody knew that was going to be a small paragraph, or at least a paragraph, I should say, in the governor's order. However, there's some necessary layers to it that we've been told thus far. There are a few pieces you have to adhere to that we've heard thus far, and that is you need sign-offs from various public organizations, local organizations. You will need your union or union support, parent input. You will need your local, specific to the school district, disaggregated data for COVID. You will need the LA County Department of Public Health sign off, and you will need the California Department of Public Health sign off. LA County Department of Public Health speaks to us weekly. Dr. Ferrer, in fact, speaks with us. They are developing some sort of process for this. We've yet to see it. At this time, the waiver is not a consideration. It's a tall task. But once we receive more information, obviously all 80 school districts in LA County will receive this information and make the best decision based on that information provided to them.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Keller. Our next question is for Ms. Van Dusen. Ms. Van Dusen, excuse me, she is the Program Director for Child Development. Ms. Van Dusen, why was CDC able to operate this summer?
Coming back to campuses and provide a safe environment for our students when we did. So our guidelines that we got from LA County Department of Health are different than what the guidelines are for when K-12 comes back. So they're a lot stricter. For instance, currently we can only have 10 students per classroom. It has to be the same 10 students every day to include siblings, and they have to have the same staff members as well. There's no mixing of these 10 students per classroom at all during the day. Masks are worn all day. Health and temperature checks are done every day when students are dropped off. We do that via a valet system. So when parents come, before students get out of the car, we're asking the questions and taking temperatures. We do physical distancing. So each student has their own setup in the classroom, 6 feet apart from each other, along with their own supplies so that they're not sharing supplies throughout the day. And we also have a detailed classroom cleaning and sanitizing protocol that we follow. With all of that being said, the program, via a staff survey, they have indicated that it's been very successful for both students and parents. And the kids are having a genuinely good time, even with all of this physical distancing and mask wearing.
Okay, that's great to hear, especially because I think you kind of came out the gate for all of RBUSD and looking at what we can do and lessons learned as we move forward. And that relates to the next question that I do have for you. Can you please describe the CDC program for the 2021 school year?
Okay, so as we're starting with 100% distance learning, our guidelines have not changed from the county. So all of those guidelines I just shared with you are going to continue into the fall. We've opened up enrollment so that more people can sign up. We are going to change our hours so that we'll open at 7:30 and have our valet for 45 minutes so that we can get students in the classroom so they can participate in their morning meeting with their elementary school teacher. And our staff will provide assistance and guidance to help students navigate their instructional day. And then once we pivot back to the in-classroom hybrid model, we'll be providing after-school care according to those guidelines at the time. And then on the days that students aren't on campus, we're looking at options for offering care on those days, given space availability.
And that's exciting news for all of us because I know a lot of families are looking at childcare. Can you kind of explain to families where they can find this information?
Yes, thank you. We have it up on our website. So if you go to the cdc.rbusd.org website, it's a pop-up that shows fall enrollment, and it'll link you to all of our information and guidelines that we have for parents for the fall. Or you could also email cdcenrollment@rbusd.org.
Very good, thank you. I'm not sure if everyone caught this when I introduced our panelists, but we have Dr. Kuo. She is the president of the local chapter of the American Association of Pediatrics. And this next question is for her. Dr. Kuo, the LA County school districts are guided by the LA County Department of Public Health. You are a leader with the American Academy of Pediatrics. How do school districts and parents reconcile the differing information?
Hi, thank you for having me. I know that this is a difficult question. I think that, we are all being bombarded by different headlines and different news sources. And everything is based on science, usually from the Department of Public Health as well as the American Academy of Pediatrics. The national guidelines that came out from the American Academy of Pediatrics are, more general and also with the perspective of what's best for children. So as a large professional organization of 67,000 pediatricians, most of our policy statements and recommendations are based on what is the best for children's health. If you're following the pediatric research literature now, you would know that there are increasing numbers of studies coming out now looking at the detrimental effects of prolonged time away from in-person education on children's mental health, on worsening health disparities, especially for children in lower income communities of color. And that is the perspective of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And so when you talk about the specific differences, we have differences even within California. So I think that what most parents pick up on is our differences in recommendations when it comes to masking, for example. So the American Academy of Pediatrics has said masking is, recommended for children and not necessarily for younger children who may have difficulty keeping masks on or who require more input for social emotional wellness or for language development. In the state of California, the governor's office, the California DPH, has said third grade and above for masking. And here in Los Angeles County, Dr. Ferrer, the director of the public health department, has said 2 years and above. And so you see these differences based on our local context, and it can be very confusing for parents, I admit. But the way it usually works is that your local context sort of trumps everything. So if the California guidelines are stricter than national recommendations, then you're bound to follow the state guideline. And then if your local ones are even more strict, we are bound in LA County to follow the county guidelines. And that is because our county is trying to contain some of the worst numbers right now in the country when it comes to rate of new cases of COVID, death rates, and our trend lines. And so there are those minor, and I call them minor because, for the most part, we all understand and accept that masks are effective and are, recommended definitely for older children. And then a little discrepancy with the age of younger children. And it largely speaks to the prioritization. So for the American Academy of Pediatrics, we look at the total development of children. And I think the public health department is focused more on the public health or preventing specifically the spread of COVID.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Coe. I appreciate you clarifying that for all of us. And I think for all of our RTT team, we appreciate you being a member of that because you provide us valuable insight because you're actually in the field and this is something you experience every day. And so we're glad you're a member of your team and we continue working with you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Alpern, the Deputy Superintendent of Admin Services, will answer the next question, which is, can you describe what RBUSD is doing to thoroughly clean and sanitize facilities so there is no risk of infection? How often will restrooms be cleaned and will there be seat covers in the restroom?
First, let me say that we are absolutely committed to doing everything we can to minimize the risk of infection in all of our facilities, recognizing that we cannot make guarantees with this disease. We have developed a top of the hour approach for our restroom checks. We have custodial staff that is going to check, stock, and disinfect restrooms every hour. And yes, we do plan to have seat covers in the student bathrooms. And all of our custodial staff have already been trained on enhanced cleaning procedures with new tools and cleaning chemicals. As a matter of fact, you can go to our district Instagram account and watch a video that we posted on June 5th that demonstrates our plan to keep RBUSD clean. We also have, in addition to our custodial staff, we also have employed and will employ the use of our teachers to apply chemical cleaning sanitizers to high-touch surfaces throughout the school day, such as in between classes and at recess, to help keep our classrooms clean.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Alford. And I just want to pause for a second and let everybody know, we do apologize sincerely. We weren't able to get everybody into the room. However, people are still able to listen to us. And so there is audio available. They're just not seeing us. And so people do have the ability to hear the question and the answer. And again, this will be posted by tomorrow morning for people to view. So Ms. Van Dusen, earlier you indicated that parents can find more information about the CDC on the website. However, a question that kind of has come up is, will returning pre-COVID-19 CDC families lose their spot in CDC if they elect to place their child or children in 100% online learning?
Okay. So yeah, we are not offering childcare options for families that choose the 100% online. But families will not lose their priority when we return to normal operations. So the only way that a family is going to lose their spot in CDC is if they withdraw. So once we go back to normal operations, we will reach out to all families that were on our rosters prior to this happening.
Very good. Thank you.
Dr. Toronto, may I chime in real fast?
Absolutely, sir.
So I can send an email to these people that have written me that they can log on with audio?
That is correct. That's what I'm getting from IT, that people can still hear our conversation.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Our next question is for Dr. Bruno. She is the principal at Sleda Elementary. Dr. Bruno, how will schools work with families to cohort students, and when will parents find out who their child's teacher will be this fall?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. It's not going to be as cut and dry, of course, but the first thing we're going to look at is dividing the alphabet of last name in half so that we can ensure that siblings can stay together in the same cohort to help with childcare, et cetera. But again, like I said, it's not going to be as cut and dry because we also want to take into consideration the cohorting of our special education students and their services. We want to make sure that if there are families that have different last names, they are following the same schedule. So your school site will be working with you to gather that information so that we do our best to ensure that families stay together. I know myself as principal, I've received several email requests because families are working together with childcare. We want to take that into consideration. I know there was a question about finding out about teacher assignments and things like that when it comes to elementary school. Know that we are working hard to get you that information. Of course, it's going to come a lot closer to the start of the school year. One of the events that we at elementary really look forward to is our teacher meet and greets that's together by our PTA. And while we can't do that in person, we are working hard to try and put something together for our students because our students love that event and our teachers love that event. So if you have any questions about cohorting, how that's going to happen, please reach out to your child's principal.
All right, I'm trying to see what the audio connection is coming in there. Anthony, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Kinsey. Am I able to proceed with the next question?
Go ahead, proceed.
Actually, I want to follow back up with Dr. Bruna. I know you shared a little bit about what parents can expect. It's not going to look like it has been in the past. However, people have asked about or mentioned the possibility if they are a family who have twins or triplets and such. Will there be any communication to those families?
Definitely. So you will hear from your school site as we get closer to the school year. Typically, if I'm speaking for myself, I always encourage families to split up their twins when we're in a traditional school setting. But given this situation, we know that sometimes that's going to make it easier for those twins to be in the same class. So your child's principal will reach out to you to discuss with you options and what we want to take, what your thoughts are into accountability as well.
Thank you, Dr. Bruno.
So,
the next question is for Ms. Silverling. She is the Executive Director of Special Education. Could you please describe the procedure for health screening and monitoring? And what if someone does not have a mobile device? And understand, everyone, that we're talking when we get to this point where we are able to go back on the campuses. there will be a screening procedure in place. And so Ms. Silverling will elaborate on that.
Thank you. Yes, so we will be doing daily health screenings once it is safe for us to return to campus. And the key difference between the secondary and the elementary screening is that at the elementary level, we will be doing temperature checks before entering the campus. The procedures are outlined in more detail in the reopening plan on page 6. But know that every site will have designated areas for entries so that we ensure that we don't have large groups in one spot. You will be assigned an entry point to the school at all sites. And in the secondary level, you will be taking a health screening survey at home prior to coming, and then displaying a green or screen which says that you are allowed to enter because you passed the screening test. Now, if you don't have a mobile device or you forgot your mobile device that day, there will be a designated space at every site for active screening measures, which will include going through a health survey as well as having your temperature taken.
Thank you, Ms. Silverling.
I'm sorry, we're appearing to get some type of cross-connection audio on our WebEx call. We're trying to troubleshoot this real quick, so I do apologize for that audio interruption. Anthony, go ahead and go with the next one there. I'm trying to filter that out right now with my team.
Very good. So the next question centers around registration at the secondary. We know that typically around the end of July, beginning of August, our secondary school sites start communicating to their families when they can register. And so what will registration look like at middle school and high school? And then will there be the transition to middle school program that we call WEB, and the same thing for the transition to high school with the link crew at RUHS. And so Ms. Veal, the principal of Adams Middle School, will go first, and then Mr. Brandt, the principal of RUHS, will follow up.
So the registration is going to be two-part, and it's going to be an opportunity for our students to really come and just pick up those essential items. So we're going to, similar to what we did in the spring when they did textbook drop-offs, we're going to have appointments. And they'll come and they'll pick up textbooks, workbooks, novels they may need, and agendas. So it's just a bare bones and really just trying to have them safely come back and get those essential items. And then once we're able to return to campus, we'll have a part 2. And this is where students will come back and they'll take their photos for their IDs, get PE clothes, and any of those other things that they weren't able to do in part 1. We're also working to allow parents to make any purchases they may need to make online. And we'll update our families once we have more information regarding that. In regards to the transition, we get that the Camp Adams is a huge part of coming to middle school. And so we're still working with our web leaders to that end. So Camp Adams and Camp Paris will both have a similar two-part registration. They're going to have a virtual opportunity for our web leaders to welcome our students, to connect with them virtually, to get to know them a little bit. And then again, once we're able to come back safely, then in person, we're going to bring them back, and we want to do the tour and the team building and all those other things that we weren't able to do online.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Toronto. Just wanted to share first and foremost, Redondo families, we miss you. We hope you're well. We hope you're staying safe. And similar to Adams and Paris, our registration will be virtual. And then once it's safe for students to come back, similar to the spring, for textbook, equipment, technology pickup, we'll go ahead and do so. They'll come in, obviously socially distanced with masks on and in very small cohorts. And then we'll be in touch, obviously, via email and phone calls and the website with regards to all this information. With regards to, of course, Link Crew and the orientation, it's one of my favorite events of the school year, welcoming our freshmen. Much of that work will likely, similar to registration, occur virtually. And once we can create some small cohorts, once it's safe to do so, we want to welcome our students back in the best way possible. So more information to come out, and just thanks for your patience and collaboration and positivity as always.
Thank you, Ms. Bill and Mr. Grant. And I know that the web program and the link program are instrumental to helping you connect with their new school environment. So look forward to learning more as you proceed virtually, and then we get to this point on ground, how we're going to transition our students in. Thank you. Ms. Cho, the next question is for you. If I select 100% online learning for 2021, will my student be able to select the same classes for the 21-22 school year as students who are enrolled in the hybrid distance learning model for the 2021 school year. So basically, parents want to know, will they be able to take the same classes the following year as their peers who may be in hybrid while they're working in 100% online?
Yes, Dr. Toronto, the answer is yes. Any student who selects the 100% online learning model with Schools PLP is enrolling in a district-approved digital curriculum that's aligned to California state standards and A through G approved for high school courses. So whether students are in option 1 or option 2, both learning models prepare students to successfully complete an academic school year in distance learning.
Very good, thank you. Dr. Wesley is our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and she has the next question. Dr. Wesley, how will RBUSD handle a teacher being absent during the hybrid distance learning phase?
Sorry about that. As always, having our own teachers deliver instruction is the goal. We think that's the best way to go. So if we're in the 100% distance learning phase as we're starting off, then we'll work with our teachers who may be able to deliver that content from a remote location. Otherwise, we do still have access to our substitutes. So it would be no different than a teacher who's out pre-COVID.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Wesley. Now, the next question is for the man who's working really hard right now on our technical piece, and that is Mr. Kinsey. He is our Chief Technology Officer, and so he is engaged with us right now, but he's also troubleshooting behind the scenes to see what he can do if he can get more people into the room, whether it be through video or audio. So thank you, Mr. Kinsey. But the question we have for you is, what devices will be available to students grades K through 12? And how would a student report a problem with a district provided device? And can students use their own device for classwork or assignments?
Thank you, Dr. Toronto, and everyone, thank you. We are working diligently on some of our WebEx issues. If you did get the invite on there, if you can let people know that there is an audio conference bridge on that you can do a call-in number as well and join us on that one. And my team is diligently in the back here making sure everything is working properly, even with that strange cross-connection. You do an event and sometimes you get interesting things. So to answer the question, the devices available to our students is, as you know, we're a one-to-one school district. We do have Chromebooks from grades 3 through 12 that are in our take-home program, and that will continue. We also have Chromebooks at the second grade level that we will be setting up for our second graders to take home during the distance learning time. In our kindergarten and first grade classrooms, we've always used iPads. We've ordered additional iPads, and they should be here shortly. So we'll be making sure that our kinder and first grade students will be taking iPads home and will have technology available to them. Of course, if a student wants to use their own device, we have no issues with that. We're just asking our students understand that they will need to log on to the RBUSD single sign-on portal, which we have information on that. You can go to the RBUSD website /information technology to our help page, and that has all information regarding our Chromebook help site. Some parents have called into us and said, hey, I can't access that site. We do password protect that site for security reasons. You just have to use your student's username and password to log on. And for our kindergarten parents who are just joining us, we'll be getting that information to you during your registration process.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kinsey. The next question is for Dr. Alpert, and this is an important one because we know that a lot of families have come to rely upon us for this. And so, Dr. Alpert, will meal services be available for students?
The answer is absolutely yes. So we have sort of two plans in place. The one that I'm going to share with you is for the plan where we are not able to attend school in person, right? So that's the beginning of the school year. So we've developed a plan to provide daily meal service at 2 centralized locations where we have central kitchens. And those sites will be Redondo Union High School and Adams Middle School. So, you know, if you live in South Redondo, you'll go to RUHS. If you're in North Redondo, Adams, although it's not a requirement, you can pick one or the other, whatever's most convenient. We'll provide further information to families before the school year begins regarding eligibility for our free and reduced, the federal free and reduced meal program, as well as how to load money onto a student's meal account. So we will provide meals both for students who are eligible for the federal meal program, as well as those that are just interested in purchasing meals. And then once in-person instruction resumes, we will communicate the revised meal distribution plan, but rest assured that we will provide meals for students that are in both the hybrid program as well as the 100% online learning program.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Alpern. The next question is for Dr. Wilds. Dr. Wilds, how closely aligned is the school's PLP curriculum with the RBUSD curriculum? And can students take courses in school's PLP and in hybrid distance learning?
Thanks, Dr. Ron. This is actually a really good question. I just kind of want to follow up again with something that Ms. Cho said earlier and kind of reference back to the letter that was sent out to families today, just to remind families that, again, we want to give our families grace and decide whether 100% PLP online learning works for them as we get close to reopening, whenever that is. That being said, that then drives this question. So it's important that the school's PLP curriculum and our RBUSD pacing align closely. And one of the selection factors of schools PLP, there's a question later on in today's presentation that talks about that, but one of the most important factors for us and our team was the customizability of schools PLP. So it allows our teachers, our admin, and our staff to closely realign the courses, allows us to pick and choose lessons, it allows us to remove lessons, move lessons, customize them, and bring them into closer alignment. There were several programs that we looked at for online learning that only allowed the student to march through the program as the program dictated. And that ability to customize was incredibly important to our teachers. And so not only will we be able to align in terms of the standards and making sure that if a family does make a selection later on in the year, their student has followed a similar standards-based course and pacing. That being said, students who are in hybrid, we can also enroll them in some intervention classes and some supplemental reading, supplemental math courses through schools PLP. However, we will not be having students complete full courses in schools PLP while they are enrolled in hybrid learning. It just, in terms of kind of the course and the credits, wouldn't match up for students. Like I said earlier today, later this week, we are going to be sending out a video that just focuses on schools PLP to kind of do a deeper dive for our families so that they can understand that learning model in greater detail. And we will also be providing our parents some demo lessons so they can go in and experience the program.
Thank you, Dr. Wiles. That's an important thing. I know that a lot of families submitted questions specific to what you just addressed in terms of learning more about schools PLP, as well as possibly getting some demo accounts so they can go in and kind of see the structure of the lesson. So I think I speak for the families who submitted questions specific to that. That will be greatly appreciated. The next question is actually for me. So please bear with me here. At the elementary level, will there be extracurricular programs such as PE, garden nutrition lessons, and hands-on art? Well, for elementary schools, I am pleased to share that through the ongoing support of Redondo Beach Education Foundation, we will be able to provide physical education to our students. So similar to this past spring, the elementary PE team will provide live and pre-recorded lessons, activities that are fun and engaging to get kids moving throughout the day. In addition, we're going to work with them to create some short videos that replicate morning exercises. So for our elementary family, we want to have some sort of connectedness and normalcy what the day looks like. And we know that beginning of every day, the first 5 to 7 minutes, students are on the blacktop doing morning exercise. And so we want to bring that into the home. So we'll work with our team to provide that, as well as we talked about adding in brain breaks. We know that during the instructional day, the amount of screen time students are going to have, we want to give them the opportunity to take a 2 to 3 minute brain break. And so our team will work to produce videos that teachers can share throughout the instructional day. However, unfortunately, due to the reopening protocols for 2021, and COVID-19, visitors or volunteers will not be allowed on campus. Only RBUSD employees and essential staff will be permitted. But we will work with our community partners such as Beach Cities Health District and PTA to see if there are creative ways to provide virtual or take-home garden/nutrition lessons or art activities to students and their families. And in fact, before this meeting, probably 30 minutes, I actually spoke with Beach Cities Health District, and I was excited to learn that they will be providing Mind and Live Well Kids garden nutrition lessons during distance learning, meaning that they are working right now to produce lessons that we can share virtually, pre-recorded, and hands-on activity type things that can be sent home with families, whether via our instructional platforms and our teachers, but we want to, again, continue those programs because we recognize the value they have for all of our students and our families. All right, on to question number 17, Ms. Silverling. How will RBUSD provide special education, including speech, and 504 services during either of the learning models?
So I'm going to start by discussing what it would look like with in-distance learning or the 100% online, because that's how we're opening school. And in this model, all designated services that are outlined in a child's individual education plan will be provided to that student to the maximum extent possible via live video conferencing. Every minute will be met, and we will work very hard to ensure that to the maximum extent possible that will be live video conferencing, whether you're 100% online or opening distance learning. When we shift to hybrid and it's safe to return to school, our goal is then to maximize those services in person, which in that model could mean your student could attend beyond the 12:45, 55 end of the day into that 1 o'clock hour, or attend on days that their cohort is not in school. For students on 504 plans, again, they wouldn't look any different. Their services would also be provided to the maximum extent possible via live video conferencing when we're in the distance learning or online, and to the maximum extent possible in person once we move to the hybrid model and it's safe to be on campuses.
Thank you, Ms. Silverling. Dr. Bruna, the next question involves TK in kindergarten. So what will TK in kindergarten look like in the 100% online learning schools BLP and in hybrid distance learning?
Yeah, so for our transitional kindergarten program, that is only going to be available in the hybrid model. We will not be offering transitional kindergarten under the 100% remote learning, and that's really based due to the curriculum in schools PLP. There is a sample schedule on page 13 of our reopening plan. So if you are interested in finding a little bit more about this daily schedule, you're going to want to refer to that. The only difference with kindergarten and TK will be that their school day is going to end a lot sooner than the rest of our students. So their school day will be over at 11:45. However, the remainder of the schedule will look very similar. They're going to log on with their teacher. They're going to have those interactions. And of course, at TK and kindergarten, our biggest focus is always those social emotional skills. So our teachers will definitely be working on those with our students, along with, the TK framework and the kindergarten standards.
Thank you, Dr. Bruno. So Mr. Brandt, the next question is for you. So as we prepare to go into the fall, there are a lot of families, especially our seniors and upcoming seniors and juniors, whose families want to know, will a college and career counselor be accessible during either the hybrid distance model, as well as for students who are in the 100% online learning?
Thanks, Dr. Toronto. Yes, hi again, everyone. Absolutely, all students will be supported no matter which program they are in, and our College and Career Center counselors will be available, as well as our academic counselors by Alpha Model will be available as of August 6th. That's a Thursday, I believe. And Ms. Shannon Rodriguez, who I'm sure most people know, reputation precedes her if she's listening. Hello, Shannon. She's already chomping at the bit. She was here in my office yesterday with her mask on, by the way, thinking about some ideas as to how to connect with students, whether it's virtually or whether we can start scaling up small group meetings, individual meetings, socially distanced, masks on, etc. So we'll have those conversations and get that information out to everyone sooner rather than later. And last but not least, please always, the importance of self-advocacy. Our students should always reach out to their counselors first. Go to the website, look up the Alpha Model, and then reach out to them via email. Again, we want them to recharge during the summer, so they will be available after August 6th. Thanks, everyone.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Ms. Cho, can you please describe how the DI program will look for families in hybrid distance learning and during this time when all students will not be on campus?
Sure. The dual immersion program in the hybrid model will continue as the DI staff from Washington Elementary School and Adams Middle School will continue to teach their students. Although the students may not be on campus, their teachers are still going to be providing live instruction, pre-recorded lessons, small group instruction. And
Go ahead, Lily. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. And basically the opportunities to develop their second language acquisition skills, such as listening, speaking, reading, writing, all of that is going to continue in distance learning. The essential components are all going to be, I would say, preserved.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Bill, as it relates to middle school electives, can you talk a little bit about those electives and what if they were no longer available? Will students still be able to select others that are in the course catalog?
Well, let's start with the course catalog. So they are available both on the Adams and Paris websites. And so those are the offerings that we will have both in the distance learning and hybrid model. There are some adjustments sometimes to certain courses like engineering and culinary arts, but they're still going to be offered. If we decide for whatever reason to delete a course, sometimes like a master schedule issue, students will be scheduled into open electives, but then an opportunity to access their counselors for course changes will be offered.
Very good, thank you. Dr. Wild, the next question is for you. How will students be graded in either the hybrid distance or the 100% online learning model?
Yeah, good question. So traditional grading, what students are used to prior to COVID-19 campus closures is coming back. So that will resume in both hybrid and online learning models. Obviously, grading is going to look a little bit different in terms of we can't have kids all come in and take an assessment in front of us. So our teachers are going to be very creative. They're going to utilize a variety of grading methodologies that are appropriate to the grade and the age of the student. We can use assessments through some of our technology platforms. We can assess students through their participation in online learning. We can assess them one-on-one through live conferencing. We can assess them through their submission of assessments and, assignments and some live assessments we can do one-on-one. But it really will be some creativity. Under the online learning platform has assessments built into the program.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Kinsey, what if families do not have access to Wi-Fi?
Yes, if families don't have access to Wi-Fi, we like them to work with their site principal. There's a lot of internet service providers that are offering very low discounted Wi-Fi service, also cellular providers. But if you're unable to do that for some particular reason, we'd like you to reach out to your site principal and we will work with you.
Thank you. Dr. Alpern, has RBUSD considered using outdoor space for classrooms, for example, using fields and or playgrounds for tents? And then also as a follow-up, will our facilities be made available for usage by the community?
The first answer is yes, we have considered that. We know, and you've heard it here, we know that being outdoors is good for students' social, emotional, and mental well-being. We will encourage our principals to work with teachers to think creatively about when the use of outdoor space for instruction makes sense. However, we also have constraints that public schools and school districts have to contend with in converting outdoor space into classroom. Like I was thinking about, as an example, it's taken us a full year to get authorization and approval to build a permanent shade structure in the lunch area at one of our elementary schools. So yes, there is red tape, and it's not quite as simple as renting a number of large outdoor tents and placing them on blacktops on our school campuses. I wish it were that easy, because we would do it. Obviously, weather would play a role, as well as the number of teachers that we would need to hire and pay for to make the use of outdoor space for social distancing achievable. So, we are receiving some additional funding, but it would not come close to offsetting what the cost would be if we really wanted to build out outdoor facilities. On the facility note, the LA County Department of Public Health guidelines at this time has noted that school facilities will only be available for instructional purposes. So at this time, no outside use by community groups.
Very good, thank you. And for those of you who are listening, it is just a reminder for all of us that all of our campuses are currently closed. And it's not just the actual classrooms and buildings, it is also our playing field and our courts. And so please spread the word that we are closed, and unfortunately our facilities are not available at this time. Dr. Keller, next question is for you. Has the county provided any guidance or prediction about the likely timetable of when the county will be off the watch list? And what will this look like when we are? Will families be given an advance notice?
A couple things. First of all, it's actually called the monitored list, and many counties in California are on that list. I wish I had a crystal ball. I think many of us do. When that day would come when we would be able to revisit our site campuses and have our students there happy and thriving. I'm just being fully honest with you. We have no idea. It's just in the hands of people that are in it from the LA County Department of Public Health. They're the ones who are guiding us in this process with support from the LA County Office of Education. Our goal is to provide families enough time when that day comes, when we believe that we can return to our campus, to give them a head start. And of course, not just our families, but our staff and our students, to get them good and ready for the return. I just remind people, and Dr. Toronto, you said this earlier, I'm a parent, we're a parent, many of us on this experience here are parents. And so that heads up would be helpful in my home too. So we want to do it right. We want to do it safely. I think that's the priority. We keep saying we just want to do it safely. And at a time, obviously that it's made clear to us from the LA County Department of Public Health that says we're safe to return. And just a reminder, I've said this many times, I don't have any great things to share, but we've never done this before. This is all new for us. And so we're learning as we go. We're trying to do it as intelligently and safely as possible, and do it with the best communication possible. And so with that, I would just say, everybody, along with staff, just be as patient as you can, and we'll try to give you a head start to the best of our ability. The light switch will not just turn on. I guarantee you that. It won't just be 8 a.m., school's in session. That won't happen.
Very good, thank you. The next question is for Dr. Bruner, and I think this got mentioned earlier, but if you could just briefly describe when we are able to return to campuses, what will recess look like in elementary? Because as a former elementary principal myself, I know how much kids value the opportunity to go outside and have that time with the peers and have fresh air and such.
Yeah, so I think it'll depend on what our guidelines are at that point from the LA County Department of Public Health. I'm envisioning it being very similar to what our CDC looks like right now. Obviously, we want our kids outside. We want them socializing. We want them to get fresh air. They need that brain break. They need the body break. So, we want to make sure we're just doing it in a safe manner. So wearing our face coverings, practicing social distancing. The great thing is that kids are very creative. And I visited CDC many times during the summer, and they have come up with some very creative games to play outside by, still staying within those guidelines of physical distancing and wearing their masks and things like that. So.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Cho, if families select 100% online learning, schools PLP, will students be grouped together by their home school?
So this will depend on after our parents have submitted their commitments to the 100% online learning model. So we're going to look at our numbers, we'll look at our students. Students will be assigned to an RBUSD teacher in the 100% online learning model, most likely by grade level, so that the focus can be on mastering grade level standards during the school year. All students during distance learning will be a part of their home school, but will be in a class with students across the district, and will be assigned to an online teacher dedicated to this group of students. So our principals will be working hard to ensure that their school community stays connected through virtual community building activities and school-wide events.
Thank you. Ms. Lilly, how will special education instructional assistants be supporting students during distance learning?
So this will be a major difference from this spring. Our instructional assistants will be available to support our students online. And I'm currently working with the principals on expectations and guidelines and building schedules for instructional assistants, but they will be able to support students by reviewing schedules, supporting work and/or behavior, depending on the student's unique needs.
Thank you. Mr. Brandt, this next one comes up a lot in terms to RUHS as far as athletics. What will that look like at the high school? And are students eligible for sports if they are enrolled in 100% online school PLP?
Yeah, the answer to the second part of that question is absolutely similar to other questions about the school's PLP. Obviously, there will be access for all of our students. We want them all connected, all supported as they choose their different extracurricular activities. With regards to athletics, definitely going to look a little different this year. The athletic seasons are being pushed later into the school year, into midwinter and spring, and they'll be abbreviated, of course, in terms of the length of those seasons. So Mr. Saltzman, our great athletics director, and Mr. Brown are meeting, one of our assistant principals are meeting with our coaches very soon to discuss ideas about how to connect with our students, tryouts, what it's going to look like in the fall. Our coaches did a really great job of connecting with our students in the spring, keep those conditioning exercises going. And we know, as Dr. Alpern was mentioning earlier, how important it is for our students to be socially, emotionally, physically connected to our coaches, teachers, and staff. So more information to come, as with everything else. Thank you.
Where would families be able to find that information?
Yeah, so if they go to the redondounion.org website and then under Redondo Athletics, they can click on that link. And the best place to start is with their individual coaches, and then moving on up, again, student self-advocacy, connecting with Mr. Saltzman, our athletics director, Mr. Brown, the administrator over athletics. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Dr. Wiles, how much professional development will be provided to teachers to support them in hybrid distance learning?
Yeah, it's a great question. Not only when we talk about the answer to this question, we're not only talking about professional development, we're talking about training. So really kind of those two large buckets. And that is the majority of the work that this department has been engaged in really all summer long, thinking about first we get ourselves up and current with the research. Most of the research around online distance learning has been focused on higher education. So we had to do a lot of research. And now we have a large menu of professional development for our teachers going forward, as well as trainings. We have a lot of technology platforms that we will make sure that our teachers are trained in, that they get to learn all the newest nuances and how to use these best for our students. So we have a lot. So we have several days before our schools students start, and we anticipate weekly professional development for all of our teachers to keep current and pivot when we need to pivot.
Thank you. The next question is actually for me. What type of social emotional supports will be available for students? And so Dr. Coe mentioned early on the importance of having the kids having social emotional supports and connectedness with their schools. And so, as most of you know, RBUSD has promoted the whole child for well over a decade. For us, it's not just about the academics. It is about fostering lifelong learners who have positive relationships, make responsible decisions, and are happy and healthy. We have a strong team of counselors across the entire district who will continue to support students through classroom SEL lessons, activities, and resources, and provide individual support virtually. In fact, we have a team of counselors who are working right now to align their SEL lessons, provide trauma support training for students as well as staff, and to address diversity, equity, and inclusion across all of RBUSD. Further, I'd like to recognize the Tobacco Use Prevention Education Grant and the Redondo Beach Education Foundation again, because thanks to them, we will be able to expand our internal mental health systems by providing additional teletherapy with a licensed therapist through South Bay Children's Health Center. I'd also like to mention, if you're not familiar with the RBUSD Virtual Calming Room, you can find that on our district website. It has a wide range of resources that our counselors created to help all of us. I think they finished it around June. I encourage you all to check that out. Again, it is filled with resources to support students and families. Next question, Mr. Brandt.
Hey, Anthony, I'm sorry to chime in here real quick.
Yes.
But we wanted to get more on here, so we're actually broadcasting this live on our YouTube channel now. We were able to bridge that connection. So if people out there can let folks know that they can go to youtube.com and just do a quick search for Redondo Beach Unified School District. That is our YouTube channel. Again, youtube.com, and just type in Redondo Beach Unified School District. You will see the link on there live, and you can see it live via YouTube.
May I ask something? May I chime in? Stephen here. Derek, if we send an email out later to parents through Parent Square or whatever, can we attach the link? Will it be live? Will they be able to watch it today if we send a link out to them?
Yeah, we will send out a link out tonight. We can send that. We'll just have to convert it from WebEx to YouTube, so it will be just a little bit of time to convert that, but we'll get it out as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, let's just make sure it works, and we'll get it out.
We'll get it out there tonight.
Thanks for watching this live.
Thanks, Mr. Kinsey. I know there's a lot of moving parts over there. We appreciate you and your team for what you're doing right now to make this available to everyone. Mr. Brandt, when will the RUHS course catalog be available for hybrid and all online learning course offerings? And will you be offering all the usual AP classes in hybrid distance learning and 100% online learning?
Sure, thanks for the question. The 2021 course catalog will be available on our website within the next week or so. If you go on there right now, the 1920, obviously this past school year's course catalog is available. The courses will be very similar this upcoming school year with one or two differences. With regards to schools PLP, I want to call it like a Redondo light. We're trying to mimic a line as best we can with the courses available regularly in a school year with schools PLP, but there will be some exceptions, mostly in junior and senior years, and especially with elective courses that we just can't mimic with schools PLP because our teachers over the last 6 or 7 years created those courses. So just wait and see with regards to that. We'll be having some comparison charts coming out shortly with regards to communication. And then, and Dr. Wiles, feel free to jump in if you have any other thoughts. And I'm sorry I can't help with the German translation of all the languages.
Your father would be so disappointed, Jens. I'm going to call and text him right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. I can get him on the line.
I know. To answer the AP question, yes. So Schools PLP allows us to utilize the UC Scout AP curriculum, and so we can make every AP course available.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and in the distance learning / hybrid model, all AP courses will be available to our students as per usual.
Very good, thank you. Dr. Alpert, how is the CARES Act money being used by RBUSD?
Mr. Brandt, weren't you born in Germany?
Many years ago.
All right, let me answer that CARES Act question. It's just more fun to kind of rib on Mr. Brandt. All right, we are we're anticipating approximately $4.7 million in federal CARES Act money. That's what we're anticipating. It has not arrived. And there are restricted categories of funding that are allowable for these federal dollars, but we have earmarked the funding already for summer school, teacher professional development around online teaching and learning, the purchase of digital curriculum, the schools PLP curriculum, social emotional counseling screening and services, additional technology, hardware and software like Chromebooks, iPads for kindergartners, document cameras for teachers, as well as additional hours for makeup of special education assessments. The federal CARES Act money, the goal is to mitigate learning loss. So anything we can do to try to both bring students back live for in-person learning, as well as to boost the quality of instruction that's taking place for distance learning or online learning are allowable uses of that CARES Act money.
Ms. Cho, if families select 100% online learning schools PLP, will students be able to take electives like band or Spanish?
So although the 100% online learning model has a broad course catalog, band is not offered. Spanish and other foreign languages are offered in schools PLP. And during this time, we will do our best to ensure the continuity of our instructional program for all of our students. Our team is going to continue to work with our elective teachers to creatively develop solutions during distance learning.
Thank you. Ms. Silverling, what will services look like for special day class students in 100% online learning?
So because we are opening school and distance learning for our students who participate in our special day class program, all of them will be assigned to their regular teacher and will participate in distance learning with their assigned special day class teacher. This program is a unique program that applies to a small percentage of students in our district, but they do have different needs, and we understand that. Once we are able to be in person, and it's safe to return to school, the students in the special day class program that choose the hybrid model will participate in a 5-day-a-week program in modified day cohorts. Those students in that special day class program that choose to stay on 100% online at that point in time will be assigned a special day class teacher to work with them online. And that would look like both synchronous and asynchronous lessons with a very consistent schedule for the special day class students. I want to let the parents of the special day classrooms know that I will be sending them communication by the end of the week to detail their schedules because they're very different and are not in the reopening plan.
Yeah, we are trying to see where this audio is coming from right now. It's not coming from one of our panelists, but we are working on that quickly.
Classes look like that require hands-on labs during distance learning, and what about the courses that require special engineering software on their computers?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Toronto. I'll persevere. So this is one of those situations where there's a little bit more questions than answers right now. That ratio is coming down, hopefully. So likely in the hands-on learning labs with hybrid classes, the teacher is going to be doing a lot of demo work, especially with those courses like science, engineering, arts, etc., and asking students to obviously follow along, whether it's live or pre-recorded, and then asking questions, discussion questions, doing formative assessments, summative assessments when appropriate. So to be determined, but we've got some plans in the works for those courses. And then in terms of special engineering software, of course, we would never require students to engage in software that wouldn't be available to them via their Chromebooks. I'll defer to Mr. Kinsey's expertise if there are additional questions with regards to the software. But more information to come out. We are moving some of these classes into the cloud, so they are accessible through their Chromebooks. So we'll be communicating with our students and families with regards to those adjustments. Thanks for the patience, as always.
Thank you, Mr. Kinsey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm working on this issue at this time. We don't know where this audio is coming from. So give me a few minutes, please. So it seems like it's a live German translation of what we are saying.
Wow.
So we're working with Cisco on it right now.
We're international.
Yeah, we went global. All right, Dr. Wesley, I know you're there. I see you over here in your picture. So in regards to the 2021 school year calendar, has there been any discussion about shutting down Thanksgiving break and reopening in January like a lot of colleges are doing? And then what is the new last day of school for 2021?
Well, thank you for asking that question. First, I just want to say that we did email out the revised calendar to all of our staff and our families, and it is posted on our website if you go to the About tab. And so to answer the last question, the last day of school is 1 day later than it was prior. So for students, it's June 10th, it was June 9th, and for staff, it was June 11th. Also, for the first part of the question, no, there's no discussion on shutting down Thanksgiving or any day. What we need to explain is that we are required by the California Department of Education to have 180 instructional days, and there's no waiver being given on the amount of days that we need to have instruction. So in order to meet that requirement, we have a calendar that shows 180 instructional days.
Very good, thank you. And again, in case anyone missed that, the calendar for 2021 is available on the RBUSD website. So please refer there if you have any further questions. Dr. Bruno, will there be consistency of assignments and assessments among the teachers at the same grade level at the elementary site in a hybrid distance learning model?
Let me chime in. Derek, are you on?
Yes, I'm on right now. I'm trying to, we can't find out where this is coming from.
So if we all logged on and then logged back on, would all the viewers stay on with us while we just reboot?
No, it's, I mean, I can end the meeting, but we can come back to it. This is, we're really trying to figure out where this is coming from because it's not coming from any of the participants or the panelists.
I don't see him anywhere.
So
Anthony,
we do have a attack case open with Cisco right now. With Cisco, we're trying to get them to resolve this issue.
Okay, so Anthony, you want to continue on? We'll try it, and if it doesn't work, then
Yes.
anybody speaks German, maybe we can share a message with them to put themselves on mute.
All right, so the next question for Dr. Wiles, and this is a big one, so hopefully we can get the background noise there blocked out. Can someone share more about schools PLP and how it will meet the need of all students? And then how did RBUSD select schools?
So we believe this is coming from people who are on the audio call right now. So we're going to kill the connection for people who are on just the audio call only, that they can join us on the YouTube page. So if they can join us, so give us a few minutes here while we resolve this issue. I do apologize. WebEx events is a new thing for us, and we hope to be hope we'll do a little better at it.
Thank you, Mr. Kinsey. And again, thank you to our audience for your patience. I would have to say that compared to some other live meetings that all of us have seen, it could be going a lot worse when it comes to the cross traffic. And so we appreciate what's going on with IT working to solve the problem. But Mr. Kinsey, when you give me the go-ahead, I'll repeat the question for Dr. Wiles.
Go ahead and go right now. We'll be kind of killing this in the background for a little bit.
So Dr. Wiles, I just want to repeat the question in case.
Go ahead.
Dr. Wiles, I'm going to
Okay.
repeat the question just in
Okay.
case.
Yes.
Can you please share more about schools PLP and how it will meet the needs of not just elementary age students, but all students, and how did RBUSD select schools PLP?
Absolutely. And I think I've said now a couple times, those families who are interested in a deeper dive into schools PLP and what online learning will look like, please look for a video from us later this week, because we want to give all the details that our families need and require, but we know there are a lot of families on this call that are not as interested. But I do want to give just a real quick kind of overview. So the selection process for schools PLP actually started several months. It actually started with myself and Dr. Toronto, and we spent a long time researching all of the digital options out there that would be aligned with that could align with the California standards. There's many, many out there. Some will then promote themselves from certain states, but have not done the work to align some courses to California. So we met with several digital curriculum vendors. We met with Acellus, which is currently in use in our high school and our summer school. We met with Apex. We went with Edgenuity. Spent a very long time with the ASU digital prep folks out of Arizona, as well as schools PLP. Then we convened a committee of teachers. We had a really diverse group of teachers from elementary, from middle, high school, as well as some administrators. And we came together over multiple meetings, and we kind of reviewed the curriculums utilizing a checklist of set criteria. We met with vendors, and then we were able to narrow down. Ultimately, we narrowed down to 2 vendors, and schools PLP really started to rise, particularly for our secondary, its ability to be customizable, but also for its ability for our teachers to customize it and add their own content, their own videos from different vendors and different curriculum houses. Our ability to do that and align it with what we wanted for our students. And then for the teacher's content to then remain the sole intellectual property of the teacher was very, very important for us. So the ability for us to not just put our kids in a program and plug and play and say, have a great school year. We wanted to be able to customize it. We needed to be able to align it. And that's all of the work that we're going to be doing over the next month as we start getting into the school year. And that's the work in professional development that we'll do for our online teachers, so that they can make sure that the work that the students are doing in schools PLP stays as aligned as we can be. Obviously, full direct instruction with our teachers is best, but we wanted to be able to make sure that we could make the curriculum Redondo's curriculum, as opposed to just outsourcing it entirely.
Thank you, Dr. Wiles. I'd like to go back to Dr. Brunix. I know that she had an important question that families wanted an answer to, and it may have been interfered with. So Dr. Bruna, can you just clarify again, will there be consistency of assignments and assessment among teachers, and particularly at the elementary level as a school site in hybrid distance learning?
Yeah, so similar to the traditional school year, our teachers collaborate regularly, but definitely during this time of remote learning, we want everyone to get the same experience. And so our teachers will have built-in regular collaboration along with what Dr. Wilds mentioned earlier, which is weekly professional development. We actually have a team of lead teachers right now who are actually working. They worked today, and they are working to put together some guidelines for their fellow colleagues around essential standards per grade level. But having said that, you know, we also know that our teachers are unique and they're not robots. So each one is going to have a different flair, and we want to encourage them to have that difference among them as well. But when it comes to core content and assessments, there will be alignment.
Thank you. Ms. Cho, what will band and choir classes look like in the hybrid distance learning? And then when we get back on campus in hybrid, will there be opportunities for continuation of music education?
Continue teaching music, you know, music in distance learning. So students will be learning about or exploring, music education, music appreciation, music theory, music composition. These can all be in virtual lessons that are pre-recorded and pushed out to students. In addition, students can continue practicing their instruments and singing their songs in the safety of their homes.
Very good. Dr. Wesley, the next question is for you. Will teachers be required to report to their classroom to teach students while LA is on the monitor list?
On the monitor list. So teachers will have access to their classrooms, and I think the reason we are being asked this question is because of the experience that a family member may have had in the spring. So I really think the focus is not so much where the teacher is teaching, but now, as we will discuss a little bit soon in the part of this town hall, the schedules, you will see that there are some minimum requirements in terms of teachers connecting with students either live or through pre-recorded lessons. And because of that, really the focus needs to be on the teacher's ability to effectively instruct their students with a minimum amount of minutes, and not so much where they deliver those minutes. So classrooms will be accessible to teachers, but the focus really is on the instruction and the minimum amount of minutes that each student will have with their teacher.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Brandt, RUHS is known for their student-generated clubs. Will there be any, and if so, how will they look during this distance learning and during hybrid distance learning?
Thanks, Dr. Toronto. Yeah, in a typical school year, Redondo has something we're really proud of, anywhere between 80 to 100 clubs running at a time. And they always have a teacher advisor attached to them. So this is, again, one of those questions where to be determined in terms of what that's going to look like in terms of virtual club meetings likely to start the year off. What time of day those would occur at, of course, needs to be worked on. But we'll get more information out. We want our students to stay connected beyond academics, of course, as I mentioned earlier, with athletics and extracurriculars. So we'll be working with Ms. Mata, with the ASB class representatives, and all the club advisors and the students who are the engines for those clubs to get more information out to the various clubs. We want our students to be involved, as always. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question, a few of us have already touched on a little bit, but it gets down to when we are able to return to campuses, how will we ensure physical distancing and the wearing of the mask or the face coverings? And so, Dr. Bruna, Ms. Veal, Mr. Brand, if you kind of want to go in that order and give a brief explanation on and how we will work together to ensure physical distancing and the wearing of masks.
Sure. So, you know, just like other protocols and procedures that we teach our students at the beginning of the school year, this will be the same thing. You know, teachers will need to spend some time talking about the expectation, what's it going to look like in the classroom, what's it going to look like on the playground. And of course, if we have, you know, repeat offenders, we want to get our parents involved and talk to them. And, you know, we're going to work with each individual students depending on what's going on. So, but definitely there'll be some, you know, lessons behind and some expectations that will be shared with them at the very beginning of the school year in practice.
I'd also like to share that as principals, we've assessed our campuses to determine the flow of traffic, the strategic placement of signage, safety protocols, all those things. And so we're going to use those to act as gentle reminders for students. There's going to be markers on the ground, any place where students line up. There's going to be arrows denoting like the traffic of the flow of traffic. So we're just trying to give them a lot of visual reminders. And then we're going to use our staff, to be very honest, just to help them not only model what we expect to see in our students, but also to remind them to be in the hallways, to be at the doors, et cetera, just helping them get into the habit. Because we know it's going to take time. And so it's, for all of us, it's just going to be that constant reminder and reinforcing those protocols.
Yes, I'd like to echo Ms. Veal's thoughts. And also, additionally, this is going to be a very clear point to our high school teenagers and their families. The sooner we get the cases down, the sooner we get this pandemic over with, the sooner we can return to normal school. So please help us help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandt, Ms. Veal, and Dr. Bruna. So Dr. Alpert, will lockers be available for students when it's deemed safe to return to school campuses? And has there been any consideration to installing physical barriers such as sheeting or plexiglass to separate students and staff?
Yes, when we return to school, there will not be a return to the use of individual student lockers. And that's just a sanitizing issue that is just not worth broaching. We are installing plexiglass in the front offices at each of our school site. And we will also use plexiglass in settings where adults need to provide one-to-one services for our students. For instance, during like IEP testing. We are currently exploring the purchase of plexiglass for use in individual classrooms. And, based on what we learn, we may or may not choose to broaden the implementation of plexiglass within each individual classroom. As we know, wearing masks and social distancing is going to remain our best defense against the virus. And as Mr. Brandt so eloquently said, as a high school parent, I will be reinforcing that time and time again with my own high school student.
Thank you. Next question for Mrs. Veal and Mr. Brandt. When can students in middle school and high school expect to receive their official class schedule?
So in the past, students received a draft schedule on registration day, and then they got their final one on the first day of school. This year, everything is going to be digital. So parents will receive the usual reminder from the IT department to update their information in PowerSchool. So we implore all you parents out there, please make sure that you update that information. And then prior to August 26th, we will message to our families like a live date when students' schedules will be available in the system, and then they and their parents can view them.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, thanks, Ms. Veal. Echo all of her thoughts. And then for us, we're aiming somewhere between August 15th and August 20th to have those draft schedules out to our students and families. So just update your information and check out the website and be sure to log on to PowerSchool. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to stay here with Mrs. Veal and Mr. Brandt. What will PE look like during the distance learning and also during the hybrid distance learning phase?
So I'll go first again. PE is going to look like any other classes. We want our students moving. We want them engaging with their teachers. So there's going to be live lessons as well as pre-recorded ones. Our PE teachers are also looking forward to an opportunity to incorporate like more nutrition and health lessons into the curriculum. They want to find some really creative ways to keep kids moving, but also really thinking about how they can better take charge of their health and their well-being at home.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, over the summer, I've noticed a lot of our students biking, running, skateboarding safely, I hope. We hope that continues. One of the silver linings of this current situation is that I think many of our students are taking ownership of staying fit and healthy at home and beyond. We hope that continues. In the spring, our PE department shared with our students fitness logs, essentially contracts that they expected them to complete by being physically active. That work will continue with live recorded sessions, both for our PE teachers and our coaches. So please stay tuned.
Thank you. The next question is for Dr. Bruna and Dr. Wilds. How much screen time do you expect younger students to have during distance learning or during the 100% online learning?
Yeah, that's a good question, because one of the things that we do is we continually monitor research coming out of the American Pediatrics Association. And I don't think a lot of those guidelines ever took into account a pandemic. So when we think about distance learning or online, the time our young children are on the computer, I think it's less important to think about and worry about the quantity, but it's more important to focus on the quality of the time and the quality of the engagement. So when we're thinking about just time is not equal to time. The time a student is on their iPad playing, Roblox or Candy Crush is going to be very different than time that they are on the computer. So we want to make sure that the time that their students are online and that they're experiencing screen time is really high quality, which means as parents, we kind of have to be media mentors on the non-distance learning time. So we're making sure that we are kind of monitoring it, and we're giving our kids a large digital recess. That being said, we do know a lot of research coming out of how long kids can stay attentive. I know all those of us who are online right now, you might find yourself kind of drifting off as different people speak, and people speak for periods of time, and our kids are the same way. A very finite amount of time that they can focus on a screen, live video conferencing, or limited amount of time they can focus on a pre-recorded video, and we know what those numbers are. And so we need to make sure that we are balancing online learning with frequent digital breaks. Digital recess is what we call it.
I would just like to add that I think our teachers learned a lot in the months of March through June, and they're going to take that knowledge that they learned based on the grade that they're teaching and apply it to how they're going to design their lessons and activities daily as we head into the fall.
Thank you. The next question is for all of our principals, Dr. Bruna, Ms. Field, Mr. Brand. Will the school be providing supplies for at home, for example, classroom consumables, workbooks, textbooks, novels, and obviously technology?
So yes, we will definitely be working with our families, of course, to redistribute any technology of the missing grades. I know we recollected second grade Chromebooks, so we'll definitely work on that. And then we also have some technology for our primary students as well. And then we want to provide our families anything that's going to help their child be successful, whatever that's going to look like. We will provide it, and we will figure out a safe way to get it into your hands.
Yes, through registration, we will ensure that students have access to the textbooks, workbooks, and novels that they may need. All students should have their Chromebooks, and they kept them, as you know, over the summer. If we have any new families to the district, we'll work with those individuals as principals and with IT to make sure that they get the technology needs met. And then we're also mindful, like Dr. Bruna said, of those families that may be in need and that need materials. And so arrangements can be made on a case-by-case basis to make sure that they have what they need.
Thank you.
Yeah, mine's short and sweet. Yes, we'll make sure we get all those supplies, textbooks, technology to our students and families. And I think this is my last speaking opportunity. I know you're all devastated, but I wanted to thank our board and district leadership for working so hard over the summer, and to all our students and families, continue to stay safe and well. And thanks for your patience and collaboration, as I mentioned earlier. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you whenever that may be. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Brand. Ms. Silverling, what are the protocols for addressing a single positive case? And will parents and staff be notified? And when will the decision be made to close down a school? Now, I know this is obviously applying to when we are able to safely return to campuses. If you could just provide a little clarity on that, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to remember in the beginning of the presentation, Dr. Keller outlined the different agencies that we are taking our information from and the guidelines and protocols that we are following. And then Dr. Kuo really eloquently outlined the hierarchy with which we operate under. And the sort of the key benchmark that we will be working closely with in the entity is the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. They currently are the entity that we have to comply with, that we have to notify and work step by step through this process. They have issued what is called the COVID-19 exposure management plan, and it's very detailed
and it describes what happens if we have a singular case and so on. For a singular case, any person who was exposed, whether that's staff or students, we do have to notify, and we will notify. At that point in time, you know, my first step as being the head of the health and safety is to call the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, and they will work with me step by step at that point in time. The only piece that's outlined in that document currently regarding school closures is that if we get 3 cases over a 14-day period at a single school site, we know that that school has to close. However, the Public Department of County Health at any time that we are working through this process could say to me, us school district, that we need to close a site and or larger. So there are things that I will ensure that we walk hand in hand with those directives, and they could fluctuate and change depending on the data and the information we receive.
Very good, thank you. Dr. Wiles, how will schools' PLP courses appear on a high school transcript, and do they equate to the same credits?
So the answer is we will make them appear however we need them to appear. So our goal when we write and we publish the school's PLP courses, you will notice that the courses will be named in complete alignment with what they are at our UHS. And so they will appear the exact same on a transcript. Do they equate to the second question is, do they equate to the same credits? The answer is absolutely yes. And then Dr. Toronto, you might want to skip back one. Question.
Will there be consistent synchronous and asynchronous time and expectations across all the classes? Thank you, Dr. Wiles.
So if we can go back to the PowerPoint. So the question, Dr. Toronto, I just want to repeat. Will there be consistent synchronous and asynchronous time expectations across classes? The answer is simple. The answer is yes. So there will be a combination of live teachers going live with students at a set period of time. Like I said, we know that based on our work in the spring, we know small group instruction is best. So whole class live groups will be much briefer. And then there will be an expectation that students continue to do some of the independent work on their own while teachers are pulling other small groups. So the answer is yes, all classes.
And Mr. Kinsey, could you please go back to the slide and pull up number 5? I believe that's what Dr. Wiles was referencing.
So I want to kind of go through one of the biggest questions that we get is, as Mr. Kinsey pulls that up, the biggest question we get is the comparison from the spring to the fall. So this was something that many families have asked that we kind of readdress and go over again. And we did. So please let me know if you have difficulty hearing me, and I will stop and I will repeat. So we really wanted to lay out for our families a clear vision of how our response to the crisis in March, April, May, and June will look different than our planned mapped out instruction going forward in the fall. When we talk about what happened on March 12th, March 13th, we were very reactive. So the reactive to the pandemic health crisis, our teachers had extremely limited time for planning, the ability to train our teachers in some of the video conferencing tools. I've been an educator for over 25 years, and I can tell you the end of March was my first time leading a group of students through video conferencing. And it is a skill that I don't know that any of us were ever prepared for. Versus going into the fall, we want to think about really a purposeful design. We really want to map out what we know worked in the spring, bring those things forward, and what didn't work, what we heard from our teachers and what we heard from our families didn't work, we want to remove. In the spring, we had very flexible daily student requirements. We had students and families who were also in a time of crisis. We had a lot of families who were first responders. We had a lot of families who needed the grace of really giving students that wide flexibility. What we know is some students really thrived in wide flexibility, and some students really needed a very strict schedule. So going forward in distance learning and in person, the hybrid, we have students will be following a very scheduled, planned school day. Their school day they will be working almost the same amount of time that they would have been if they were in school. In the spring, we were under hold harmless grade from the state Department of Education. And that is no longer going to be the case. Going forward, we will be going, like I spoke to earlier, the traditional grading, looking a little bit different in how we assess some of those grades, but we will be going forward with traditional grading as our students or families are familiar with. In the spring, we were really focused on review. I think Mr. Serkin said at the very beginning, our first thinking when we shut down is we were thinking only for 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, we were really concentrated on this idea of reviewing concepts. We knew our students extraordinarily well because we'd had them since the beginning of the year. And we really, because we were focused on review, that really restricted our ability to teach and focus on new content. Going forward, we are focusing on grade level rigorous standards. What we know from a lot of the research, particularly out of Hurricane Katrina, is our students will thrive when we start the year off with grade level rigorous standards. And as we address those standards, we can go back and we can fold in some preliminary skills and knowledge that they may need or may have missed out in the spring. The materials we used in the spring, we had our Chromebooks, but we had, as you can obviously see, there was a portion of our population without technology that they were used to. We were relying on kind of emailed lesson plans and some traditional sources. And going forward, we have increased that technology to make sure everybody has what they need. We have some increased, we have board adopted digital curriculum. We have some increased supplemental digital platforms to make sure we have a thorough analysis of where we had gaps. So where were we not? So one question earlier was asking Mr. Brandt about science labs. That was obviously a gap in distance learning. And so that is one of the things we're going forward with is looking at and researching how do we recreate digital labs and those digital lab experiences for students. And there are platforms out there. In the spring, we were looking at intermittent live contact with the classroom teacher. We were all on a stay-at-home order. And so that was really kind of, students couldn't predict it on necessarily a daily basis in some classrooms. So going forward, we have live daily contact. That contact will be consistent. It will occur on a consistent schedule for students. And I wanted to clarify one thing that we may not have made clear in the board meeting. Those either live or recorded teaching experiences with the teacher will occur whether the student is in the building or whether the student is at home. So we want to make sure that learning marches forward and is not limited to just the days the student is with their teacher. We had something called office hours because in higher education and you have online learning, you have something called office hours. And what we learned from our teachers and families and probably most of us during our college career is that nobody accesses office hours. And so we're going to repurpose that time and we're going to make it intentional intervention tutorial time that we can assign out to students as needed. We are increasing our SEL supports and making them more universal and pushing out lessons and really kind of focusing on trauma training for our teachers. We are continuing to provide all of our IEP services. And then we really want to kind of really take a look at what do our parents and families need to best kind of support our students at home. Do our parents need more education around supporting Google Classroom and really understanding that? Because this is a type of learning that none of us really experienced. And then finally in the spring, we were attendance free. So we did a lot of outreach to our disengaged students. It took us a little bit longer to find them. And now we will know, this is probably the one slide that I get the most feedback, especially from secondary students. They're not really happy about us going forward with daily attendance taking. But it's true, it's not a rumor, it's coming back. So we'll be taking attendance daily and we will be taking attendance at the beginning of every secondary period.
Thank you, Dr. Wiles. I appreciate you going through this visual. I know it was shared at last week's board meeting. It is something that's part of our reopening plan and available on our website. And so at this point, we're going to move forward more so in our town hall based to talk more about the schedules. And I say that because early on, Dr. Wiles indicated that there'll be more information coming out later this week, more specific information as it relates to schools PLP. But we also had an abundance of questions regarding what does it really mean in distance learning? What does the schedule look like for my student or my child? And so families really wanted to know a little more detail. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Wiles and Dr. Westling. They're going to kind of go through a few slides with all of you and go through the sample schedule and give you a little more perspective on what it will mean to be a student in distance learning. So if we can pull up slide number 6, please, Mr. Kinsey.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dr. Wesley.
Well, I think it kind of goes with maybe the next question, but again, as Dr. Welts pointed out, we're going to be you will default into the hybrid learning model unless you indicate otherwise by August 4th. And as a part of the hybrid learning model, we're going to be in full distance learning. And so you can look at the slide as we talk about, well, what does that mean? And in order to understand what it means, let's talk about when we go back to school. So when we have the ability to have students back on campus because it is safe enough. And we've talked about students being assigned to a cohort based on their last name. We'll have two cohorts, cohort A and cohort B. And students will go back to school 2 or 3 days a week, depending on whether or not they're secondary or elementary, respectively. So that is why if you are in the hybrid model, you are indicating that at some point your child will return to the campus when it is safe, when it is allowable. And but staying home 100% when we go back to in-person wouldn't be an option. And so let's talk about why, because one of the questions is, well, when we move to the hybrid, how can someone, what happens to the student during the distant learning portion? So when you're not in class. So for instance, if you're in cohort A, you're going to be going to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you're going to be learning remotely, distance learning on Wednesdays and Fridays. And then if elementary, you will alternate every other Monday coming to school. And then if you're in secondary, that's grades 6 through 12, you will have access virtually to all of your teachers during a block period of time. And we'll look at what that looks like in a minute. So if you are at home on a Wednesday, let's say, for instance, my child is in cohort A and she's at home Wednesday and Friday, what will happen is the teacher will log on with all of the students the first part of the day. So you're looking at a schedule now. This is 100% distance learning, but I'm going to talk a little bit about when we're hybrid, and that means, again, half of the cohort, one cohort is at school and one cohort is at home. So if you're at home, then the teacher is logging on with you still, even though he or she has students in front of her or him, and is checking in, taking attendance, and giving direction to the students at home. At that point, that teacher can say to the students at home, stay logged on. I'm going to do a direct instruction lesson. Everybody's going to be engaged in that lesson, whether you're in front of me or you're at home. And then the teacher can say, after that lesson, now those of you at home, log into the Google Classroom and complete the assignment that is there for you. And when you come, we will discuss further. What we know about the in-person instruction is that there will be a deeper level of engagement while the student is there in person. The teacher will be able to work with the students beyond what they can offer at the remote setting. So for instance, in an English lesson, the teacher may engage the students who are there live in a Socratic seminar and may assign the students at home some reading and some questions and some type of activity or pre-recorded lesson that will prepare them for when they come to school to participate in the Socratic seminar. The teacher could say to everyone, I'm going to do a lesson on the quadratic equation, and those at home and those in the classroom would watch this lesson, and then the teacher would work with the students in front of them in that small cohort more directly, while the students at home either watched to get a pre-recorded lesson or engaged in some type of practice work until they came to the classroom. So what we will see is that there will be a minimum amount of minutes that the teacher will engage with students, either live or pre-recorded, when the students are at home instead of when they're in class. And then when they do come in, they will participate in that deeper learning and that deeper engagement. If we go to the actual schedule now since we are going to be opening up as 100% distance learning, so if we go to the next slide, slide 7, we can talk about what that's going to look like, because that will look very similar to the hybrid model when students are both in person and in learning remotely. But when school starts out, they will be 100% distance learning. So here's a sample schedule of elementary. And so you'll see the first part of the morning, we want students to get up, get ready, get dressed, get ready to go live, eat their breakfast. It's like a normal school day. and they're ready to go. So by 8:30, our students, as Dr. Wild says, are expected to log on. Attendance will be taken. We want to see the eyeballs on the screen. We want kids to check in, and the teacher will take attendance and will connect with students every morning. And then the teacher may push out some type of social emotional curriculum, may ask a question of the students, again, just to engage and connect with the students and just figure out where everybody is in terms of their social emotional capacity. Then you'll see these blocks of time. So then from 9 to 10:30, you see this block of time. And that is not intended for the student to be logged on for an hour and a half. What we've learned through our feedback from both our parent surveys and our staff surveys is that students learned more effectively in the smaller groups. And so we created these blocks of time so that the teachers have the ability to engage the students in a smaller group. So it could be that the teacher says, all right, cohort A, you log in at 9 o'clock, cohort B, you log in at 9:45 or you log in at 9:30, whatever that is, and then they can deliver the instruction in a small group setting. So the first block may be English language arts and social studies, and there will be an actual direct instruction lesson where students are going to log on and participate. It could be whole group, it could be in 25, 30-minute chunks. It's however the teacher decides, and it depends on whether or not they're new content, whether they're reviewing a concept, whether they're digging deeper. They'll have that discretion based on what it is that students are learning. There will be a built-in snack break so students can go and do what they need to do, and then they'll be instructed to log back on during the second block. So the second block could be math science. Teacher could flip it, math science first and then English language arts. There's some discretion there, but there will be a block of time when students are engaged in direct instruction for English language arts and or social studies, and then another block for math and or science. And again, teachers can do it whole group, small groups, by cohort, whatever it is they think is going to be the most effective way to deliver that content to the students remotely. And the students are going to be expected to log on at the given time assigned to them and be available during that block of time to participate either directly with that lesson or to log into the Google Classroom and do the work that is assigned that correlates with that lesson that's being taught. There is time for lunch, both for our staff and for our students, and then they are still required to continue working. So as Dr. Wiles explained, that we formerly had office hours, and now we've intentionally created a time where teachers can do intervention or independent work with smaller groups of students who may have a greater need. And so you'll see a block of time where students would then be able to access the teacher, and the teacher would invite the students to meet with them and go deeper or provide an explanation or just to assist them if they are struggling learning a particular concept. Students are going to be expected to continue working. Teachers will assign work that is, again, related to the lessons taught earlier in the day. And all of that work is a part of the instructional minutes that are required by the state. We have to make sure that we are meeting those instructional minutes, and that's going to be in the form of the lessons that are either taught live or either pre-recorded, and also the work that is assigned. You see on the very bottom that our goal is to provide some enrichment lessons that would be pushed out through pre-recorded lessons to our students. And those topics may change, but there would be a PE lesson, there'll be a music lesson, etc. at some point. So the students will get a schedule so they can see the times they need to log in to either engage with the teacher directly, watch a pre-recorded lesson, and then do the work that is assigned. If you go to the next slide, we can look at the secondary schedule, and it's not different at the beginning of the day. At the secondary one, we are expecting students to go to again prepare to log on, and I'll look at my notes until we get that slide pulled up.
Dr. Wesley, I want to clarify one thing that has come up frequently is that we've had parents I've had people contact me and ask me, well, why are the times off between distance learning and hybrid? And that question is, as long as we are still on 100% at home, we wanted to build in as much independent small group tutorial intervention time for our teachers as possible. When we can shift to start bringing students back, we will shift the lunch period later so that students can maximize their time on the campus. with their teacher. So there will be some time periods. So what I say to parents is don't get completely married to some of these times, because these are samples. These are meant to just provide families a general sense of what their child's day will look like.
And Dr. Wiles, thank you for sharing that, because I know in the questions that were submitted, there were parents who were interested in learning more about what type of intervention or additional support will be available to students to account for any learning loss that happened from March through June. And then who can they contact should their child need any more support or if they have additional questions. So thank you for touching on that, but I know I just threw out a couple of questions that are on our list. If you could maybe just take a second to answer those.
Yeah, absolutely. As Dr. Wesley showed in the elementary schedule and then in the secondary schedule as well, you will see what the students will believe is independent reading time, but we on the back end side are calling our intervention and our additional tutorial time. So we know small group instruction works. What I will say to parents though, because I have two 13-year-olds doing 100% distance learning in my home too, I had to spend a great deal of time reaching out to my child's teacher and teaching my children to reach out to their teacher to really kind of let them know what was going on and what wasn't working for my children. And so what we will say to parents is that with this kind of more structured schedule, with consistent online, consistent small group time for our kids, we believe our teachers are going to, it gives our teachers a greater ability to really to see what's going on with our students. But that being said, when our kids are at home, we will absolutely need to rely on our families and our students to give us the other side of the coin. When kids are in class, we can tell within seconds if they are not understanding the lesson. It's much more difficult when a student walks away from their live video conferencing to tell whether was that for the bathroom or was that because we didn't know what was going on. So we'll tell parents the first line of contact if you're seeing your student really struggling or needing additional intervention will be the classroom teacher. We will have the ability with all of these different programs, including schools PLP, to enroll kids in additional supplemental intervention programs in a variety of subject areas, but then really making sure that we get our access to students in these small group tutorial times.
Thank you. Did we want to move on to slide number 8, kind of look at the sample schedule for secondary?
Yes, we do. Yeah, and I'm glad that Dr. Wiles pointed out that these are sample schedules. And again, as I mentioned earlier, when someone asked about will teachers be teaching in their classroom, really the focus is on the minimum amount of minutes that the teachers will engage with the students live or pre-recorded. So given that we do have these, we will have these minimum amount of minutes, and teachers will be able to decide what that will look like based on how many groups they create when teaching a lesson. And they will communicate that to the students and the parents each week. So the secondary schedule you'll see here is again very similar to the elementary in that we're asking students to get up, get ready, prepare for the day. Obviously, if you have a 0 period, you'll notice that's going to meet every day like a 0 period normally does. And we are looking at the bell schedule that is the high school bell schedule. Then you'll notice for Tuesday and Wednesday, there's periods 2, 4, 6, and Thursday and Friday, there's periods 1, 3, 5. And you may ask, well, why is that 2 periods in a row, 2 days in a row, they have the same periods? And that's because we made the 100% distance learning schedule exactly the same as the hybrid when we go back in person. So when we go back in person, cohort A is actually going to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is why they will go to school and physically be with their teachers 2, 4, 6, and then 1, 3, 5. And then B is on Wednesdays and Fridays. So if we pivot to 100% distance learning, it's the same schedule as when we are hybrid in person and learning remotely on the off day. And that's just can maintain that consistency so that we can't easily go into the hybrid in person, or if we have to, again, pivot back distance learning. You'll notice on the Monday, I referenced this earlier, students at the secondary level won't physically come to campus on Monday, but they will have live engagement and instruction with all of their teachers on Monday. So the expectation is that students are logging on at these times. They're logged on for about 30 minutes with their teacher, And the teacher can actually utilize a flipped classroom model where they're talking to the student about what's going to happen for the week, what the expectations are, the learning outcomes may be, what they need to do to prepare. And so they have time to do that, as well as to check in social emotionally and to take attendance. And so that will be what will happen both in person model as well as 100% distance learning. So then you'll see that there is, again, time for lunch. And then if you're a period 7 student, you also, like 0 period, would be engaging with your teacher after the lunch period for the rest of the day. As Dr. Wilds pointed out, again, that independent reading tutorial time is really the time for the teachers to tap into those students who need additional support and assistance because there may be some learning loss, or there may be some deficit, or they need additional support in some manner. And so that's what will happen during that time. So on Tuesday, just to be clear, the teacher could reach out to students in periods 2 and 4 and 6, depending on the content being taught, and say, hey, I want you to log on with me at 1 o'clock, and we're going to go deeper into that math lesson, or into that English lesson, or into that biology lesson. And they'll be expected to log in at that time. But while that's happening, if the student is not in a small group intervention, then students will have assignments that they need to be completing at home during that time. The teachers may also say, hey, during this time from 1:30 to 2, please check in with me if you had difficulty understanding the lesson today. And they would be available for those students to check in with them after they've done some level of some level of intervention earlier in that block. And then again, once at the end of the day, we have an instructional day from essentially 7:50 to 3 o'clock. Students will continue independent work assigned by the teacher through the Google Classroom, et cetera.
And Dr. Wesley, I want to point out, one of the things that we mention frequently is we say things like, going live for a minimum amount of time. And we've had parents say, well, what is the minimum? And I think I alluded to this earlier before, but the minimum really depends on the needs of the student. So keeping a 6-year-old online for a period of 45 minutes it just doesn't work well for their needs. So the teacher might go live for maybe 8 to 10 minutes, but then pull students in small groups throughout the block. For a high school student in period 2, for example, a high school student might be able to go live for 30 to 45 minutes and really get some deeper learning out of it. So when I tell parents, we are customizing it based on the age and the grade of the student and what their needs are in order to deliver the content in a meaningful way.
And thank you for pointing that out, because very similar to the elementary model, the secondary block is not intended for the student to be logged on the entire time. We know it's no different than being in class and a teacher, giving direct instruction or quote unquote lecturing for the entire period. That's just not an effective, teaching strategy. And so, our teachers don't do that. They will generally give some type of direct instruction, maybe an essential question or some type of lesson that's going to trigger some curiosity, and they'll do that at the beginning of the period, and then it'll allow the students to then dive more into independent learning or engage in some type of activity. But the period is meant to allow teachers to meet with students in smaller groups, and so students will be assigned a time to log in with their teacher during that period. But they are expected to engage in work for that period during that block time. And then they will go on to their next period, very much like they did when we were actually on campus pre-COVID. It's the same concept. And so we need our students to understand that unlike in the spring, they are going to be expected to either be engaging with their teachers or engaging in a lesson for the entire day from 8 to 3 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. So there were a couple other questions, Dr. Toronto, that we had around the schedule. One of the questions was asking about the teachers in either model reviewing student work, assessing needs, and requesting time to meet with a student. And yes, that's really what Dr. Wesley just pointed out. And that's really why we need to give our students some independent work in that block at the end of the day, because providing students feedback in digital formats is incredibly time consuming, unlike having students in a classroom where you can just hold up an answer. teachers are having to log in one at a time to check work. So we need to make sure we give our teachers space to do that.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I know Dr. Wiles and Dr. Wesley, you mentioned instructional minutes, but did you explicitly state like what we're required to, or what are the minimum instructional minutes at the grade levels? And if you did not, could you share that with everyone?
Sure. At kindergarten, it was 180 minutes. At first and second, again, I'm going to have
it's 230 for grades 1, 2, and 3, and then 240 for the remaining grades. But I think it's really important to note that it's not about the minimum. It's about, we're exceeding the minimum, and I think that should be the expectation. That we want to make sure that our students are having access to the curriculum and the content, and the teachers have ample time to teach the essential standards and the content necessary to move on to the next class. And this is where I think Mr. Brandt is very good at really talking about getting students to own their own learning. But we need students and also even our parents to understand that we talk a lot about what the teacher is doing and the teacher should be doing, but we also have to focus on the learner. And it is about learning the content, learning the curriculum, because we're hopefully in a COVID situation that will ultimately, hopefully sooner than later, go away. But we still have to learn the content that will be necessary to do well, successful at the next level. So if that means you're enrolled in algebra, the learner really needs to make sure that they understand that concept and ask questions and reach out and advocate for themselves and ask, can I come? Can I meet with you? I need help. Because you're going to need to know that information when you go on to geometry and then algebra too. And so, our teachers are doing an amazing job. Anyone who knows about pivoting to distance learning knows you're actually doing more work than if you had all the kids in front of you. And so we really need our learners to make sure that they are learning. Sometimes we get focused on grades and we get focused on all these other things, but really the focus needs to be on learning the content because it's going to be necessary for the next level.
Awesome. Thank you both. And so we've covered, I think, very thoroughly the distance learning model. So we can go to slide number 9. And Dr. Wiles, I know you wanted to touch on specifically what is the 100% online learning through schools PLP, and give a little more clarity and definition to families who, as we talked about at the onset, we are giving people the opportunity who know right away that this is what they want to do, but we are taking that timeline for families to gather more information before making this decision on whether or not to commit to online learning schools PLP.
Absolutely. And there are families that I've spoken to who said this is the choice that they want to make. They know it now and they're confident, and they because due to health reasons or health reasons in their family, they can't take the risk of exposing their children, which is absolutely understandable. So they want to make the option and they want to start the year this way, so please note kind of like the red kind of bullets on the left-hand side. That being said, if we're in full-time distance learning right now, we have families who absolutely want access to their regular classrooms and their regular teachers, and we want to make this decision whether schools are able to open up in 6 weeks, which I don't necessarily believe is going to happen, or much later. We want to make that decision at that time. And so we absolutely agree with you. We heard you loud and clear. So we are committing to making sure that at the time we believe we have a date for opening up, we will communicate that very far in advance to our families. We will review kind of this option again, and then we will allow families to opt in at that time. So we want to make that clear. If you are a family who knows now, absolutely great. We'll send a form out next week or later this week, and you can opt in, let us know, and we'll get you enrolled in the program and the courses that your child needs. I do want to clarify about courses. This really, we want to make sure that all of our kids have what they need. So whether you are a student who is an 8th grader who normally would start 8th grade year in Algebra 1, we want to make sure that students have that availability. But that being said, similar to what Mr. Brandt said earlier, several of our electives we just are unable to replicate in its entirety because those are really these amazing courses that our RUHS teachers have put together. So option 2 will be 100% enrollment in courses with the core of their instruction in the digital learning platform with Schools PLP. And Ms. Cho later this week will be sending out this video that she's going to be putting together to really show parents the intricacies of what this option will be. That will include a demo account where families can go in and they can try out a secondary Algebra 1 lesson. They can try out a second grade language arts lesson. So you can kind of see and get an experience of what a lesson would be for your child. That being said, we haven't fully integrated the courses yet. So our ability to go in and customize them to Redondo Beach will take several weeks for us to do. So we don't have the full access to courses for parents to play around with. The primary instruction will be provided by the online platform, but that being said, there will be daily, similar to the hybrid, there will be daily check-in, attendance, SEL, making sure our students are still connected with their teachers and with their school and with each other. We know that's very important no matter where they're doing their learning. There will also be some mini lessons and some instruction to make sure our students kind of follow along and kind of really get kind of a little bit of a double dose of some of these essential standards, predominantly at the elementary level. That's important for us. Teachers will also be monitored very closely. They'll be able to monitor the assessments, monitor the activities that students are doing so they can provide additional feedback to our kids, and then be able to pull small groups. And so we know that small group works, and we want to make sure small group instruction with small group time and interventions with the teacher is still available. So if a teacher can pull a group of students and say, I see that you 3 or 4 are having difficulty with this concept in the lesson, their teacher's going to be able to do that. Instead of providing a kind of a blanket sample schedule, the sample schedule will really be determined by the online teacher and that group of students. And really kind of, we want to customize it for what works best for the students. We'll make sure that they have daily contact with classroom teacher. They will have small group instruction, like I said, one-on-one contact as they need it. Daily required attendance and participation. This is really important for us to monitor because if a student is struggling in the 100% online learning, we need to address it early and we need to make sure that we put things in place to support them. We don't want students getting a trimester or a semester down the road and realize that they've been struggling. You're going to see traditional grading. And like we said in option 2, this is something that families must opt into. So if you want to start the year, we're going to ask to the best of your ability, if you can let us know by August 4th so that we can do staffing. That's really important for us to understand how many teachers we'll need in this program. But that being said, we are giving parents some flexibility. If you want to start the year, we'll let you opt in up to 10 days into the school year. And then if you just want to continue in the hybrid, and then when we know schools are going to be reopened, you want to revisit this for your family, that will absolutely be okay with us too. And the school's PLP courses will be customized by our team, our teachers, to make sure we have full alignment with district instructional planning.
So Dr. Welch, just to clarify, because I know this was a question that came up inside of the parent submissions for everything.
Sure.
In addition to this daily contact time with the classroom teacher, and again, I want to emphasize, this is an RBUSD credentialed teacher.
Yes.
And that there will be opportunities to students that have live instruction and either one-on-one or individual small group type work to support them if they're struggling.
They will absolutely get live instruction in terms of SEL and supporting our students' social and emotional. That is a non-negotiable. So we need to make sure that students, no matter where, we need to make sure that that is a top priority. And then absolutely, even in the option 2, families and our students will have the availability for small group intervention as they need in contact with their teacher.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I know that was a point that a lot of families had expressed some questions around. So Dr. West, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to the online learning schools PLP?
No, I think Dr. Wells did a great job at thoroughly explaining that model.
Okay. So we are nearing the conclusion of today's Reopening Schools Town Hall. At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to our superintendent, Dr. Keller.
Yes, so thank you. If you're still with us, I'm impressed because it's been a long time together. So first, I want to thank the team that presented. You did a great job, all of you. I'm proud of you, and I couldn't be more thankful. Sorry to the community out there for the cap of getting in. That's just something that shouldn't have happened, and I apologize. I'll use the pronoun I. I'll take the heat for that. That caught us by surprise, but it will not happen again. And then for the extra caller, no fault of their own. That's within our system. We should have filtered that out, and we did not. I apologize for that little irritation. I know I had it, but that was on our end. And so what I'm thinking is what we can do is within the next week or two, take another run at this. We can get new questions because I think a lot of our community will have, gotten through some of the disruption and finally gotten through, in fact, and receive the answers. And I know they can watch it online still, and I'll have Mr. Kinsey talk about that when I'm done here. But maybe we can come back in a week or two, and Dr. Toronto, we can receive more questions, have a cleaner process than we did tonight, and kind of a tighter version, because I think a lot of these questions have been answered and they were able to understand exactly what was being said through that. So with that, that would be my recommendation to the team. I applaud everybody who presented today, and I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Toronto, to confirm with Mr. Kinsey if we can in fact get this online later.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and have this online to folks as soon as we end the meeting here. We'll reconvert it and post it up onto our YouTube channel, and it will be available to view for all of our people in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Kinsey. So in closing, on behalf of the RBUSD Board of Education, our superintendent, and our panelists, I thank you for joining us today. I hope that we were able to address some of the most pressing questions that were on the minds of our staff and students and families, excuse me. As we continue our planning for the first day of school on August 26th, if you have additional questions, as Dr. Keller said, we are more than open to looking at having another town hall and giving you the ability to submit some additional questions. I would also suggest that you refer back to a reopening plan that's on our district website. And if you see something in there that you have a question about, contact that individual specifically. So for example, I work with our counselors on social emotional learning. So if you have a question in regard to that, my email and contact information is available in the reopening plan. Email me directly. Our principals are returning from a very limited summer break. So if you have very site-specific questions, we recommend you check their website first. As Mr. Brandt indicated earlier, specifically for athletics, there'll be information posted there. But the same thing goes for academics, and look at emailing them directly. So again, as a reminder, this event will be posted online. We do apologize for the technical difficulties that we went through today, but hopefully, again, we were able to cover a lot of information and some of the pressing questions that you had. So thank you again, be well and stay healthy.